Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about Rabih Almeddine's An Unnecessary Woman. So Almeddine is a Lebanese American novelist, and An Unnecessary Woman is set in Lebanon. It follows, it's about an elderly female protagonist named Aaliyah Saleh. I don't know if I'm pronouncing either Almeddine's name or Saleh's name right, but I think I've got Aaliyah Saleh more or less right. So Saleh is this really interesting character, and almost the entirety of the novel actually takes place in her head. There's very little external action until almost the end of the novel. It's about her reflections and her experiences that have led her to her particularly reclusive life. And this is a literary novel. And what I mean by that is particularly this is a novel centered on the idea of literature, the experience of literature, because Saleh is a translator. She translates novels into Arabic, or translates books into Arabic, not necessarily just novels, but she translates books into Arabic. Interestingly enough, though, so she doesn't publish these. She just sort of does this for her own edification, out of her own deep-seated love of the written word. So she doesn't translate them. That's one thing. She also doesn't work from the original languages. She triangulates her translations. So, for instance, if she's translating something by Dostoevsky, rather than reading it in Russian and translating from the Russian, she will work from an English translation and a French translation to produce the Arabic translation. So I guess it's more of a diamonding than a triangulation, because she starts from one language, finds translations in other languages, and then produces the Arabic translation. So we get this basically right from the beginning, and this, her particular translation practice really dominates the novel. Her love of literature dominates the novel. So very early, she reflects, for most of my adult life, since I was 22, I've begun a translation every January 1st. I do realize that this is a holiday and most choose to celebrate. Most do not choose to work on New Year's Day. Once, as I was leafing through the folio of Beethoven's sonatas, I noticed that only the penultimate, the superb Op. 110 in A flat minor, was dated on the top right corner, as if the composer wanted us to know that he was busy working on Christmas Day in 1821. I too choose to keep busy during holidays. Over these last 50 years, I've translated fewer than 40 books, 37 if I count correctly. Some books took longer than a year, others refused to be translated, and one or two bored me into submission. Not the books themselves, but my translations of them. Books in and of themselves are rarely boring, except for memoirs of American presidents. No, Nixon. Well, memoirs of Americans in general. It's the, I live in the richest country in the world, yet pity me because I grew up with flat feet and a malodorous vagina, but I triumph in the end syndrome. Tech. Books into boxes of paper, loose translated sheets, that's my life. I long ago abandoned myself to a blind lust for the written word. Literature is my sandbox. In it I play, build my forts and castles, spend glorious time. It's the world outside that box that gives me trouble. I've adapted tamely, though not conventionally, to this visible world so I can retreat without much inconvenience into my inner world of books. Transmuting this sandy metaphor, if literature is my sandbox, then the real world is my hourglass. An hourglass that drains grain by grain. Literature gives me life, and life kills me. Well, life kills everyone. So this is Saleh's sort of life philosophy, this single-minded devotion to her translation work, to literature, to the written word, to the point where she effectively has no interpersonal relationships. I mean, throughout the course of the novel, we go through some of her memories of interpersonal relationships that she's had, most of which in some way have fallen apart, either because that person has died or something else has happened, they've lost touch, whatever it is. But her love of literature is the one sort of constant, and apart from her memories in which she has some relationships with people, in the novel's present moment, she doesn't really have any connections. She has neighbors that she vaguely knows, but she doesn't really talk to them. She's aware that they have social connections, that they drink coffee together, that they hang out, that they chat, whatever it is, but she doesn't really participate in it. And so she's this fascinating reclusive character. The whole novel is in her mind, and it's brilliantly written because it's so cerebral, it's so literary, it's so clever, but it's like a one-person play. It's like a one-person show. It's a sort of narrative monologue of an individual's experiences with no one else really entering it, until almost the end of the novel. And this, I actually think, is one of the brilliant gestures of the novel, is that disaster strikes. That in itself is not brilliant. I'll get to the brilliant part, but disaster is what precipitates the brilliant part. So basically, Saleh's upstairs neighbor, Jumana, her plumbing burst. So she has some sort of problem that floods her bathroom, or that floods her specifically maid's bathroom, which I guess is a sort of... I guess I'm thinking of it as like a sort of like a powder room or like a half bath in an American home. I don't know if that's a roughly equivalent. But Jumana's maid's bath is immediately above Saleh's maid's bath, and so the water drips down. The water flows down. And that's where Saleh keeps her translations. So the translations she's done over the past 50 years are stored in cardboard boxes in that room. And so you can see the problem, I think. This flood of water drenches the cardboard boxes, penetrates through them, and drenches the translations that she's done. So Jumana and some of the other neighbors come down to sort of find out whether or not Saleh's bathroom has been flooded, and Saleh runs to the bathroom because she knows that the translations are there, and she says, "There's no hope. Dark though the maid's room is, I need not see. The smell of water damage is acute. The 7 mouths of the Nile have poured their wares in here. My soul screams. My voice is mute. I am now destitute. Who among the angels will hear me if I cry? I stand in the dank and the dark amid my wasted life, not knowing what to do, unable to make any decision, and weep. My hopes were extinguished a long while ago, and now any tinder of dignity follows suit. Whatever remains of my self-worth seeps out of me, flows out of me, and follows the water down the drain. Everything is gone and left me, and I don't know what to do." And it is this heartbreaking moment, but out of this great tragedy, out of this heartbreaking moment, there's a sort of re-emergence. Saleh is brought back into a community, the community of this neighborhood, because these other women. So it says here, the women surround me once more and lead me by my hands and elbows out into the light. One of them, probably Maria Teresa, the shortest, gently pulls on my arm, forcing me to bend a bit, and wipes my face with a tissue moist with sanitizer gel. She must have one of those miniature antibacterial bottles on her person at all times. And I think that first line there is great. The women surround me once more, lead me by my hands and elbows out into the light. I think that's what happens here at the end of this novel, is this re-emergence from the reclusive world that's interested exclusively in the written word, that has no use, no even desire for sociability, for social contact. And this disaster, the loss of this life's work translating, opens up the opportunity for the rebuilding of those communities. She says here later, as soon as I try to move, I teeter like a giraffe that's gorged herself on fermented fruit. Maria Teresa of the kind face wraps her arm around my waist and steadies me. My forearm rests on her shoulder. I feel both helpless and shiftless. I wish to escape all this and return home, except I am home. Sit, Maria Teresa says, leading me to my armchair. Catch your breath for a minute. We'll clear the boxes out. And the women, her neighbors, that Saleh has had very little contact with. Her neighbors bring their hair dryers, they bring their irons, they bring whatever they have to dry the sheets, to dry these thousands of pages of the translations that Saleh has done, what she's dedicated her life to. These women who are really not even her friends, not even people that she has much contact with. Come to help her out. And there's this great moment, I forgot to mark it, but there's this great moment. Here it is. So the women start drying the pages of her translation of Anna Karenina, and there's this great moment here. Hearing Jumana and Fadia enter the foyer, Maria Teresa announces, "We're talking about Anna Karenina and husbands." The women greet this pronouncement as if they had heard that one of their children was getting married. The expression on Jumana's face is that of a woman about to ululate. Fadia holds 3 hair dryers in her arms, one the size of a cannon. Jumana a tray of her sacred coffee kettle and 4 cups. I am touched by their thoughtfulness. I have only 2 cups in my apartment. So, I love the ending of this. I love this moment of coming together, this group of women who have not been friends with Saleh, but who, out of this community, out of this communal feeling, unite together to engage in this probably largely fruitless act of trying to dry out these thousands upon thousands of handwritten pages. And it rebuilds a community. And we get the sense at the end of the novel that even though Saleh is still not entirely comfortable being social, she's not entirely comfortable having a friend group, that this is a sort of redemption for her. This is a sort of re-entering into the world.